Cryptocurrency does not seek to replace currency. It's a bad name. Cryptocurrency seeks to replace banking. The core things that banks have done since the 1300s, those are going to go away, 100%. And let's just be clear what I mean by that. The reason that we even have banks originated in Italy around the year like 1340, all right? And the reason they originated was because of a set of accounting advances that allowed banks to serve as trusted intermediaries between parties that owed each other money. Before that, literally, I would write you a note and I would promise to pay you money and you'd put the note in your pocket and you'd see if anybody else would take the note. You know, that's why we refer to discounting notes. And then banks arose and it was like, you no longer need to do that. We'll take care of it for you, but you're going to have to pay us to do that. That function of needing a trusted intermediary to maintain ledgers of account to figure out, do I owe Brooks money or does Brooks owe me money? It turns out that function no longer has to be done by human beings. The same way we don't need postal clerks anymore. I can send you an email for free and it's instant and that's just the end of the post office. Sorry, but it just is. That function will go away. What's going to be left for banks is the high value add services, you know, structured finance, investment advisory, you know, all of the things that make a dynamic economy function. We still need people to do that. There's a lot of creativity going on in finance. But the core of banking, the base of the pyramid, the thing that drives most of their revenue, doesn't need to exist. And that's why I say, and I was saying to one of the organizers even before we stood up on this panel, cryptocurrency does not seek to replace currency. It's a bad name. Cryptocurrency seeks to replace banking. Just if you take nothing from this panel but that's what you need. You know, the biggest issue that I always try and focus on is cryptocurrencies are really not about currency. And the biggest misunderstanding of this whole discussion is the belief that if crypto is not doing a great job of replacing the US dollar, then crypto is failing in its mission. And what I think we'll talk about a little bit today is the idea that most of crypto is about replacing the centralized banking system with networks that allow user control versus bank CEO control.
I've always been deeply opposed to crypto, Bitcoin, et cetera. You pointed out the only true use case for it is criminals, drug traffickers, anti-money laundering, tax avoidance, and that is a use case. Because it is somewhat anonymous, not fully, and because you can move money instantaneously, and because it doesn't go through, as you mentioned, all these systems have built up over many years, know your customers, sanctions, OFAC, they can bypass all of that. If I was the government, I'd close it down.
Okay.
I'm so curious what was going through your mind when you heard Jamie Dimon's response.
Look, when Jamie Dimon and I are in exactly the same place, it's because we have a serious problem in this country.
JP Morgan says it has reached an agreement in principle to settle the Jeffrey Epstein sex predator litigation with the U.S. Virgin Islands with a payout of $75 million. The settlement ends a bruising episode in which each side accused the other of enabling Jeffrey Epstein's abuses and led to a series of embarrassing disclosures of relationships that high-ranking bank officials at the time had with Epstein himself, including one former executive who frequented Epstein's private island.
And that is a part of the financial system is being used by terrorists, by drug traffickers, by rogue nations in order to launder money, move money through the system and finance their illegal activities.
Investigators in Philadelphia are searching a cargo ship captured in what's being called one of the biggest drug busts in U.S. history. Some 17 tons of cocaine has been recovered, worth more than $1 billion on the street. Officials tell CBS News there might be another 30 tons on board on top of what they've already found.
And when I asked the question, should the rules that apply to their banks, and by the way, also apply to stockbrokers and gold traders and credit card companies and credit unions.
Reporters is that this has been going on for about 8 years, in which these traders, they specifically were clearly kind of talking about JP Morgan here. I mean, the names that we have in the story do refer to these JP Morgan executives. They had been spoofing the market for the better part of 8 years, and silver, gold, platinum, palladium, I mean, all of the precious metals.
What I'm talking about is the part of the system that makes sure that banks are not being used for terrorist financing, for example.
The nation's biggest bank is facing a $13 billion fine this morning for its role in the mortgage meltdown. JP Morgan Chase negotiated the tentative settlement on civil charges with the Justice Department. The deal does not end a criminal probe, and it could set a new standard in cracking down on bank behavior.
There's a new threat out there. It's crypto, and it is being used for terrorist financing. It is being used for drug trafficking.
JP Morgan Chase has agreed to settle fraud charges for its role in the financial crisis. Under this settlement, the bank will now pay $154 million, just shy of that, which is actually less than what it earns in 1 week. The SEC says the company misled customers about risky mortgage investments. Last year, Goldman Sachs paid $550 million to settle similar charges.
North Korea is using it to pay for about half of its nuclear weapons program. We can't allow that to continue.
JP Morgan, Barclays, Citigroup are amongst 5 banks fined a combined total of 1.07 billion euros by European Union regulators for taking part in 2 cartels in the spot foreign exchange market for 11 currencies.
You know, we have something called the Bank Secrecy Act, which is how banks are required to monitor certain kinds of transactions that go through the system. It was written in the 1970s following 9/11. The law enforcement folks went back, looked at what had happened, figured out how the financing had made it through the system, and that's the last time that Congress updated the Bank Secrecy Act. What we need to do is we need to update it again because there's a new threat out there.
JP Morgan Chase has officially settled with federal authorities over criminal charges that the bank ignored warning signs of Bernard Madoff's $65 billion Ponzi scheme. The bank will pay $1.7 billion to settle the claims, which authorities say is the largest bank forfeiture in history and the largest penalty by the Department of Justice for a Bank Secrecy Act violation. That act requires banks to alert authorities about any suspicious activity.
The crypto assets that have prices are more like internet stocks. It's more like you bet on Google if you think there's going to be high internet traffic, and you short Google if you think people are going to go back to the post office, right? But it's not that Ethereum or Ripple or anything else is trying to replace the US dollar. It's trying to replace a system of transmitting value. And we'll talk a lot more about that. So for me, the prices are not that relevant any more than Google's volatility is. And in the early days of Google, that was super volatile.
Rob Cunningham, if you even remotely believe these 5 XRP goals were possible, and you currently operated a privately owned central banking system with global monopoly powers over most currencies, governments, and corporations, wouldn't you leverage all powers at your disposal to destroy XRP, defame Ripple executives, order the SEC to dispatch Gary Gensler to wage lawfare, intimidate, bankrupt, and assassinate the Ripple XRP brand in the eyes of the public? If the perpetrators of the most heinous crimes against humanity finance their schemes, genocide, and endless wars, debt enslavement, presidential assassinations, and wealth confiscation behind false narratives and sophisticated lies, and XRP plus DLT offered our world even a 1% chance of escaping the Bank of International Settlements and World Economic Forum prison matrix, would you take a chance? or support the status quo powers that be and the hell on earth they've orchestrated. If we keep on doing what we've always done, we'll keep on getting what we've always got. It is the lust of money and all its power and control that is the root of evil. The owners of the world's vast majority of money and power generate the evil in our world. Time we destroy their monopoly. What do you say, XRP Army? And so he says, why does XRP exist? These 5 reasons. First off, level the economic playing field. Eliminate U.S. political tyranny. Restore soundness and transparency. Expose crimes against humanity. Decentralize power to individuals. Now, folks, perception is reality, and I believe that we can create our own reality. We are against forces of evil, without a doubt. 100% up against forces of evil that are trying to keep us enclosed, entrapped within their debt system. Now, Rob has a little bit more here. Let me read this off. He says, time that we dismantle the heinous money cartel forever. Less than 30 days into office, Executive Order 13772 was signed, specifically highlighting Ripple and XRP. Do you believe the powers that be supported anything President Donald Trump supported? Of course they did.
So when we're looking at banking and how banking is basically able to manipulate all of these things that happen in the world, how do you think XRP fits into that manipulation? If the banks are manipulating everything, how far does that manipulation go with XRP, and where do you see XRP being in the future?
My understanding and the way I explain it to people, Lewis, is it is a brilliant, necessary, miraculous technology. And again, people need to first of all, pause with the fear, pause with the tribalism if it's out there. But let's think about, no thing is good or bad, right? I mean, a gun's not good or bad. It's what's in the heart of the person, right? When they put their hand on it, it can be used for self-defense. It can be used to feed a family. It can be used to stop a bad guy, or it can be used for nefarious purposes. So the use of XRP, the best way I like to explain it is, think of Ripple as an Amazon network. Amazon's out there. Not good or bad. We're not talking about the culture of Amazon or whether you like Jeff Bezos. Just think of it as the network, okay? And think of XRP as the Amazon box with a little smiley face on it, right? And then think of content, the content inside that Amazon box. Think of the infinity logo. Anything can go in that container. Anything that's tokenized, anything of value, a tokenized representation of gold, of my car title, my medical records, a US dollar, a German mark, a British pound, any kind of contract, thing of value, royalty stream from a music, a percentage of your ownership of the Mona Lisa, whatever can be tokenized can then be transferred across.
We're also about to see massive changes in the $23 trillion world of big finance. In the months ahead, central banks around the world are planning to go digital. Many of the legacy banks you've heard of, where you probably even keep your money, like Bank of America, Chase, Citi, Wells Fargo, they're about to be reset, overhauled by a new type of technology called fintech, which is short for financial technology. In other words, the banking infrastructure is being rebuilt from the ground up, and very few Americans are aware this is even happening. We are right on the verge of a once-in-a-generation opportunity to profit by investing in the companies that are building out the architecture.
Here's why I think XRP, there are two things, one inside the U.S. and one outside the U.S. Why XRP will be so good. I'll start with outside. After 2014 or so, the United States has sanctioned Russia and has given them a really bad time. I don't want to get into all the details, but they have basically said you can't use SWIFT. Okay? Now, the Russians have come out in July and said, if you're going to continue to block SWIFT, we're going to use wherever the situation calls for it, wherever it is expedient, wherever it is convenient to use, we're going to use XRP. And I think that they found a backdoor to lift the gold price and do harm to the dollar, frankly. Okay, that's outside. Russian usage of XRP where convenient. Okay, inside the United States, I told you before, we've already got a Treasury bond blockade, rejection at Long Beach and numerous ports. Our typical payment device is like a 3-month Treasury bill or a 1-month Treasury bill. And they're not taking it, Nino. They're not taking it. And these foreign nations that ship to the United States are going to be in a position to say to the United States vendors, I'm talking about Walmart, Target, Staples, Office Depot, all these different companies. If you want the input, you need to give us gold or a gold equivalent. We'll take the gold token, and the United States will say, we don't want that. The United States vendors will say, we cannot do the gold token. And Texas might, because Texas is leading the movement to join the BRICS among the U.S. nations, among the U.S. states, which is really fascinating. But here's the climax point. The vendors are going to say, we will not pay you, you Asian and foreign nation suppliers, we will not pay you in gold token from the BRICS, but we'll compromise with the XRP.
Ah, okay.
And I believe XRP is going to save the U.S. economy.
Wow.
For import supply.
I'm going to simplify another conspiracy for you once again. Okay, so let's say you're BlackRock. You're in control of 40% of the investable assets globally. You're heavily invested in literally every aspect of life. The food industry, medical industry, weapon industry, transportation, the media, everything. By the way, this isn't a conspiracy, this is public data that anyone can find. So once you have all this power, you need to increase demand in order to keep the economy going. What are you gonna do? Well, you're gonna create a crisis. Because you cannot have a $90 billion weapon industry without a war. You cannot have demand for green energy without a climate crisis. You cannot sell a vaccine without a pandemic. And you cannot create media traffic without drama. It's an entire ecosystem controlled from the upper class, and it's no coincidence we're in a perpetual state of crisis.
For this reason, what we have seen in the elections in the United States, in the Brexit vote, this anger of people against globalization and against the elites. If you look what's happening in the United States, particularly, you have this anti-system movement. What we are seeing is a revolution against the system.
The people who really understand what's going on with digital currencies understand that putting these protocols in place, the blockchain protocol, the Ethereum protocol, the Ripple protocol, and then enabling those protocols to cause transactions to occur. And then those transactions can be defined very broadly as not just moving things of value, but anything that's got an information content, is extraordinarily transformative. The focus on the value of the token is distracting and uninformative.
So maybe now's a good time to invest in it.
I'm investing in the companies. I have owned some of the tokens on and off, but I'm investing in the companies that use the technology to drive this transformation.
I'm Rosie Rios, former Treasurer of the United States and current board member of Ripple. What I like to talk about is really kind of this intersection between government and innovation. Certainly coming from the Bay Area, born and raised in Silicon Valley, I've seen a lot of change over time. And what I love is the conversation is really starting to happen in a constructive way where I think we as a region, we as a country, and perhaps we as a globe could really think about the future of fintech and who the stakeholders are and how we can make this effective for everyone. So when you think about growth, it's not just kind of GDP growth, which of course is a big part of the economy, but it's also where new growth comes from. And that usually comes from, certainly lately, in technology and innovation. So I think the benefit of why business and government should be working together is, again, providing that level of certainty for further expansion, further growth, and certainly more jobs for the economy. So blockchain is here to stay. It's not going anywhere. And so it's not just how to facilitate commerce. There are other applications, whether it's NFTs, whether it's, selling real estate, whether it's, any type of financial ledger that can be recorded for posterity's sake. This is here to stay. And it's important and incumbent upon the government at every level, whether it's local, whether it's state, whether it's national, to really give some thought as to how those applications are going to benefit them and benefit everyone. But I think what's most important is what are those guardrails? What are those tracks that we can lay down in order to move forward in a way that really blazes the trail for future growth and future opportunities that we perhaps don't even know are there yet?
They don't care about the human spirit,
Exactly.
Gerald.
That's what I'm trying to say to you.
But where can we live? Where else can we live? Where should we go?
Again, that's why I fight for freedom, because, as I say, I'm only me because I'm a Napolitano, born in the
Are
Bronx.
you optimistic that that change can happen?
It's only if, again, it does not take a majority to prevail, but
That's
rather
right.
an irate, tireless minority keen on setting burst fires of freedom in the minds of men. And the people that are listening to this today are that irate, tireless minority.
Cryptocurrency does not seek to replace currency. It's a bad name. Cryptocurrency seeks to replace banking.
Call everyone a fascist till they're all controlled.